I'm going to do what I think will be a fairly short little video on reflection. And I think this will be useful both to the students in RET 4190 colloquium who are actually working on their e-portfolios and to the students in RET 3322, the Intro to Professional and Technical Writing, who for the past week have been talking about the e-portfolios and how they're going to save files and prepare to do the e-portfolios once they finish the program. Uh, Here's the first thing I would say. There is something in learning theory called metacognition. And a simple way of describing what metacognition is to say that you can go through and learn something and be able to do it, but can you articulate what you've learned, what you did, how you did it? If you can do the latter, then you're into metacognition. So it should be pushing you to a more deep level of understanding of what you've learned. So you probably realize that in professional and technical writing, what we do in that major is that we all do an awful lot of what is called project-based learning. And I think this would probably be something that would be appropriate to point out in your portfolios. Uh, that because when employers look at what you've done, they need to understand what the program is all about. And what I think is very different about our program is that we do a lot of project-based learning. Here's what that means. If you're in an editing class, you're doing actual editing. You're doing the kind of job that you would be doing on the job. So when you're doing project-based learning, what you're doing is a project that is essentially the same thing in the classroom that you would do on the job. So if you're in editing for publication, what you're going to be doing is editing, uh, helping to edit Quills and Pixels, which is an actual magazine. So that's project-based learning. That's a very good way to learn because you're actually learning by doing, and you're learning the kind of skills that you'll need to succeed in the job market. So I think that's one important part about our program. The other thing that I would say is, well, I think that's a very good kind of learning, and it's a very deep kind of learning. If you can reflect on that and then understand what it is that you learned in that editing class as you were moving through the class and you were doing that project-based learning, then that's a whole different level of learning. So that's what we're hoping to do with reflections. The reflections that happen in your portfolio should be a kind of learning. This should be you getting to a metacognitive level of what you've learned in the program. So that first big reflective piece that you do probably include on your landing page. You don't necessarily have to do it on your landing page or your home page. But that big reflective letter of here's what I learned in the program, that should be you pulling together and understanding what it is that you learned. And then when you go into each of the pages of your portfolio, so you'll have a page on editing and development of writing pieces, organization, and so on. When you're into those sections or categories of your e-portfolio, you're going to include several documents that demonstrate your learning, and these might be projects that you've done in classes. Uh, it might be something like if you're demonstrating editing, maybe you have a document where you've marked it up either in hard copy and you make a PDF of that document, or you maybe have a document where you went through it in track changes and made editorial changes. So that's the project. That's the project-based learning that you've done in the program. But you should also be able to say, here's what I learned from doing that project. Here are the skills that I developed as a writer. If you can get to that metacognitive level, that's a deeper level of learning, but it's also going to create more transference. So what you learned in the course then is going to be more likely to be transferred to job experiences or other types of writing projects. So hope this helps. This is just sort of a further explanation of why we think reflection is important and why we want you to include that in your ePortfolio. And it's probably something that you will be doing in many of your courses as well. So let me know if you have any questions about this.